and many other topics where perhaps the public has been fooled by the media and vested interests. Because we here at We Have the Power believe that our towns, cities, states, and country and the condition they are in is up to us. The main purpose of We Have the Power is to educate, motivate, activate, bring up to a need for change, a demand for improvement, and results, so we never lose our freedoms and liberties. I hope you'll watch these segments and join with me in keeping America great. Thank you. Well, welcome to the first show of the reboot of We Have the Power. I was off for a while and now I'm back, going to be doing a couple of shows a month. And tonight's topic is going to be on changing the names of our politicians so they are more responsive to us. But there's a second topic which I believe is of more importance to Americans, and that is the terribly high cost to become a U.S. senator or a president or even a Congress member. And I believe this has been pushed artificially high so that the people in the back rooms can control the people we get to vote for. Now, a lot of people don't realize that it costs $50 million, basically. It probably could be much higher than that, but at least $50 million if you want to run a viable campaign to be a U.S. senator in Washington. Now, you look in our finances, and do we have $50 million to give these politicians so they'll remember to do for us? No. They have to go to corporations and rich individuals who are going to demand favors from them. And again, I believe this has been pushed artificially high so that good people who don't have that kind of funding and can't get that kind of funding will not be able to run, and thereby we will not be able to vote for them. Now, many, many years ago, our founding fathers fought a war for independence because England was charging us taxes which we had no say about. Taxation without representation. Now, before I go into where we stand today, listen to this quote by satirist Will Rogers. He says, "We have the best Congress that money can buy." And I think that's quite a fitting statement. Now, this one's a little darker. This is from Felix Frankfurter, a U.S. Supreme Court justice, who said, quote, "The real rulers in Washington are invisible and exercise power from behind the scenes," end quote. So we have a situation today where, first, the simplest thing that you can do, because I will never stir you up with all kinds of bad news or how things are and how bad things are without giving you something that you can do. And I don't expect you to leave your family and go to Washington and be a lobbyist and try to bring down the cost of running for office, because that doesn't work. Your family needs you. You can't just run off and try to handle the world and forget about your family and your pets and your job and everything else. But there is something you can do immediately. And every time that you talk to, send a letter, send an email, or call your elected public official, start calling them by a new name which better fits and reminds them of who they are supposed to be working for. Call them public servants. Now, many of them who are the worst will say, "How dare you? That is so demeaning to call me a servant." Well, we're not talking about a servant who would serve a family their dinner. We're not talking about a servant who would clean up the house. We are talking about serving the public, which is what they're supposed to do. So you could still call him a senator, but you say public servant, Senator Jones, public servant, Senator Smith. I want to remind you this, that, or the other. Now, let me tell you, going on to the second, so do that. This is something you can do, and you feel like, darn it, I can do something, because you'll get various different responses from the senators and Congress members that you say this to. And if you get a bad response, how dare you say something like that to me? That individual probably is not working for you. He's working for the individuals and the corporations and the lobbyists who pay him all kinds of money and give him all kinds of favors. If you get a response to saying you're a public servant, yeah, that's right, Joe Public. Yeah, I am a public servant, and I'm trying to do the best I can in a system that's very difficult. That's somebody you want to support. So moving on to the second topic that I want to go over today, which is of such importance to the freedom and liberties of our country, and that is the high cost of running for office, $50 million to become a U.S. senator. That has been artificially manufactured to that level so that good individuals who don't have that kind of money and will not do what the corporations want will not be able to get that kind of money. So they can't run. So they don't end up on the ballot, and we can't vote for them because they would do for us. So again, you might say, well, how can we change that? Well, the first thing you can do is call your elected officials public servants. They're supposed to be working for us. See what reaction you get. Number two, there we go. Number two, make sure that you ask them, how do you feel about the high cost of running for office? Just ask them in a letter or personally if you go to a barbecue and they happen to be there. See what their response is, and do not reelect them if you don't get a response that you like. Because here we are again. Our founding fathers risked their lives to free us from taxation without representation. Sure enough, the backroom guys and gals have engineered it again that we basically don't have representation. Now you ask me, Brian, how can you say that? I do get to vote. So here's how it works. You go into a U.S. Senator's office for your state and you tell him, hi, I'm here to talk to you, and I really hope you'll fund schools more and you'll get the bridges rebuilt and on and on. And he says, it's so great to see the constituents here. I'm so glad you came by my office. Gosh, I love that when I see the voters come by and visit me. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. I'm busy, but thank you for coming by. Now, if you push that individual to vote no or yes on a particular bill, guess what they're going to do? They're going to get on the phone and say, bill number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how am I supposed to vote on that one? They're not going to do for you. They're going to do for the individuals who gave him the $50 million and will give him the $50 million again so they can keep running and holding office. So do we really have representation at that level? Not really. Because when push comes to shove, let me tell you right now, if there's a bill pending for a bridge or redoing the freeways, and their vested interests say, no, don't spend the money on that. We need the money for something else. Or we're going to put up hotels where that new freeway thing. So no, we don't want the new freeway going in or whatever. They are not going to listen to us. They are going to do for their supporters. And that must be changed. Now, there was a case in the Supreme Court, Buckler versus Vallejo. Supreme Court ruled that limits on election spending were unconstitutional. I'm sorry, that is wrong. For the good of the country, limits on how much you can spend on any given candidate must be instituted, as well as term limits. Now, let me give you an example on term limits. You know, you take a piece of steak at a picnic and you lay it out on a plate on a table. It could sit there for maybe an hour. But after an hour or two, nobody's going to want to eat that steak. And after a year, are you kidding me? After 40 years of that steak sitting out on that picnic table, nobody's going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So do you think it's wise for us to send our senators to Washington and they sit there for 40 years, a target for every vested interest, everybody who has money to help them run? No, we are setting them up for the only solution they have, and that is to do for the people that give them the high sums of money. Now, again, I would not say all this and you're going, oh my gosh, it's really messed up and I wish you hadn't told me because there's not much I can do. Well, the first step on handling anything is confronting the fact that there's a problem. You confront that there's a problem, and that'll start opening the door to a handling. Now, I do have a plan for this, which would be fought tooth and nail by the vested interests, but it's something that at least we can look at as a model of how refreshing it would be if my plan was instituted. So let's take Ohio, or it could be any state, but let's just take Ohio. Let's say my plan was implemented in the state of Ohio, and they did a survey and a study, an actuarial study, free from vested interests, just completely neutral is what I'm trying to say. And they found out that the people, the citizens of Ohio, could raise, let's use this number, about $100,000 for the senator they want to send to Washington. So the law goes down from the governor that, guess what? If you're going to run for senator, you can only spend $100,000, and only $1 can come from any corporation and any person. Okay? Now, there's plenty of people in Ohio, so I'm sure that $1, but this is a fictitious example, but at least it gives us an idea of how things could be. So let's say the people of Ohio go, okay, this is cool. And they raise $100,000, and whether it's a Democrat or Republican, they provide the $100,000 so that that person running as senator can get some notoriety and people can vote for him. And what do you know? Senator Smith or Senator Jones actually wins the election. And that senator is sent over to Washington, and that senator, male or female, sits down and starts looking at the bills that they have to vote on, and guess who they are answerable to? Only the people of Ohio who raised the $100,000 that got them to Washington. And the people in Washington go, this is great. Vested interests cannot touch our senator. Big corporations cannot touch our senator. It's illegal. And our senator running this kind of a campaign and agreeing to these limits is the kind of person that does want to do for us. Now, how refreshing would it be if all the senators in the Senate at this time had no vested interests and no $50 million to raise, and they could do for us? Imagine how good this country would start to be. Now, do you think I can snap my fingers and this is going to happen? No. The vested interests, the power brokers, the people who control Washington would fight this tooth and nail till their last dying breath. But at least having a proposal like this gives us an idea of how good it could be if the senators and Congress members, public servants as they are, were responsible only to us. We might get motivated, given how refreshing that would be. And with term limits in place, we stop the idea of, for the corporation, saying, don't worry, Jones is going to be there for many, many years. We're going to work him and, give him Cancun vacations and everything. No. If term limits are in place, it cuts again the power of the corporations, the rich people who want to manipulate things for their own ends, and any other people donating large sums of money to our public servants, our elected officials, And that, again, puts the power back into the hands of us where it belongs. And we do have the power. It's right there. We have the power. Now, let me tell you another example. If everyone refused to buy a new car or a new truck until they were painted purple, they said, oh, no, you haven't got any purple cars on your lot. We've got together at a luncheon meeting, the whole town. We aren't buying any cars until you start painting them purple. Let me tell you what would happen. Overnight, there would be purple cars on that lot, okay? This is the power that we hold. Now, if we don't go to the polls and don't vote, then the people that want to keep these senators in power will vote and you'll still win. But the way that we start is by addressing them by their proper names, seeing how they respond. I know I'm shaking the camera a little bit because I'm getting excited about this. So we call them by their proper name, public servants. We start asking them how they feel about term limits, how they feel about the gross sums of money that it takes to win elections. And the ones that are least open-minded to changing that system should get your vote. It might be a Democrat or Republican. Some of the Democrats don't like these kind of situations either. They don't think it's fair. Their kids have to grow up in a state where there's all these laws that are pushed by corporations and rich people. So they get affected by it as well. So this is something that's extremely important. Now that you know about it and you know what to do, number one, with your public servants, how to give them a new name respectfully. I don't mean to be ugly or ill-mannered toward them, but just use that name. I use it all the time when I write to them. That's something you can do immediately. The long term is finding out how we're going to get this money out of politics. And there are various pockets of agreement that this should occur because people know that vested interests are trying to control our public servants. Naturally, they're there for 40 years. You know, if someone put up a target and you're an archer and you get one shot at this target, you're probably going to miss, or maybe you'll hit it. If it's there for 40 years, you have all these arrows you can keep shooting at it. Some of them are going to stick. This is what I'm talking about. They shouldn't be there for 40 years like a magnet for vested interests and people who want to manipulate them. Not in our favor. So these are issues that in the busyness of your life, trying to raise your kids properly, trying to figure out your retirement, whatever you may be dealing with, still have to be looked at a little of your time, because the time spent not only will help you live in a country that is free and prosperous, where you have freedom and liberty, but you certainly care about your kids and you sure want them to grow up in a world that has freedom and liberty, living and breathing and very healthy. I do a live show on Friday at 5 p.m. I hope you'll join me again, and please be active in getting our elected officials, our public servants, to work for us, which is their job. Thank you for watching. Be healthy, be well, be productive, be happy. Thank you.